Hi, everyone. Welcome back to HeLLO Vanderbilt Libraries, the orientation for LLO students to help introduce you to some of the key resources that are available through the Vanderbilt Library system. My name is Em, and I'm the librarian for your program. In this third of 3 videos, I'll show you a few examples of what some of our library resources look like. Just to start off, this is our Vanderbilt Libraries website. This is our main library page, which is linked down at the bottom of this slide. And again, as I've talked about in some of our past videos, you can see that this main library search bar, that's the main search bar that I've been talking about. That's kind of a good place to start with research if you're still trying to figure out exactly what it is that you're interested in researching, or kind of the other end of research, if you know of a specific article or book or other type of resource that you'd like to see if we have access to, you can put in that name here in the search bar and see if we have it and either get access to it right away or request it through interlibrary loan if we may not have access. I do also want to point out that this is another way to get to our databases A to Z link that's right down here. Again, that has the list of all of the databases that Vanderbilt subscribes to, and we are actually going to look at that on our very next slide. So this is an example of what our database A to Z list can look like. I will just point out that this list can be a bit overwhelming if you look at the full thing. And if we were looking at the full list right now, we would have more than 850 databases that would be showing up in this list for us. However, because many of those are not really relevant to the research that you all will be doing, I have gone ahead for this example and filtered this down so that you can see over here, I'm only showing the databases that we, the Peabody librarians, feel like are the most relevant for the students at Peabody. So this is a way that I would recommend you go ahead and filter down that list kind of right away as soon as you are starting your research, because it's going to be much more relevant to you to look at these around 128. The number may be a little bit different whenever you go to this website because it does change all the time because we're always getting new databases. Sometimes databases combine. So that number may fluctuate a little bit. But really what's great about this list is that you can see all of the potentially relevant databases kind of at a glance, including each one is going to have a little bit of an explanation of exactly what it has. So I would definitely recommend this A to Z list. And again, this is something that I can help you figure out as well, which databases would be the best for you to start your research with. This is an example of what it would look like if you were going to conduct a search in a database. I've used ERIC as the database for this example because it's a really common and often used database by our Peabody students because it's all education materials and resources. You'll notice in this example that I have kind of taken a research topic, which would be continuing education for teachers in Tennessee. And I've broken it down into our 3 main parts of that topic. And I've added various synonyms for each part of that topic into each box. So our first box in ERIC has a lot of synonyms for continuing education. Our second box has some synonyms for teacher. And our third box has some synonyms for Tennessee. And really what we're doing by putting the South or the Southern US is just broadening that search out a little bit, because when I initially tried the search just with Tennessee, I didn't really get a ton of resources for that. This goes back to something that I talked about in the second video of research being a very iterative type of process. So I tried one search, it didn't work out quite as well as I had hoped. I came back, I made some changes to the search, I tried it again, and I liked the results better that I got the second time. So if that's the process that you're following, that's great, you're doing it correctly. You'll also notice a few things about how these terms have been entered into each box. This has to do with how we talk to a database. And basically what I mean by that is that databases are set up to search in a very specific way. They're going to search exactly whatever it is that we have typed in. That's why thinking up all of those synonyms is a really important part of the research process before you even dive into the databases. Because if we were just to put in continuing education, and perhaps there's a really good article out there that talks about similar ideas, but the phrase that article uses is professional development, we're only going to see that article in our results list if we actually include the phrase professional development. So thinking up those synonyms is really important. And again, that's something that will also happen as you're doing the research. So maybe you can think of a few synonyms to get you started. You can read through some of the papers and the abstracts that come up in the results list. And then you can go back and make some changes to your search based on other terms that you may have seen in articles that you didn't think of at the beginning. You'll also notice that all of the terms that are more than one word are in quotation marks. That just tells the database that we want it to treat that term as one thing. So if we put in continuing education as a phrase, but without the quotation marks, we would get a lot of articles that say the word continuing and a lot of articles that say the word education, which is not quite what we want. We want the database to treat that as one idea. So that goes in quotation marks. Some of the terms you may notice have an asterisk at the end. That just tells the database that we want it to search for any possible variation of that term based on where we've put the asterisk. So if you look at teacher, that's going to find both teacher singular and teachers plural. Finally, you'll notice that each term in each box is joined together by the word or. That just tells the database that for the purposes of this search, we're treating those terms as equivalent. So again, going back to what I was saying a little bit earlier, the continuing education and professional development, maybe they're not quite the same thing, but for the purposes of this search, we want the database to give us articles that uses either one of those terms because those articles might be helpful for our search. This is also something that I'm very happy to go over in appointments. So if you're feeling a little uncertain about how to actually take your topic, get it into a synonym situation, and then put it into these databases and search, I am more than happy to hop on a Zoom call and help walk you through how that process works. In this example, you can see the results list based on the search that we did on the previous slide. The most important things on this page are that you'll see here in the list of results, it's going to tell you the type of result that something is. In this case, it's a scholarly journal, but it could also be a book or a dissertation or a report. If you want to limit it down only to those peer-reviewed articles, which, as we talked about in the last video, are what we call the gold standard of research, you can come over here to the side where you have all your limiters to help narrow down your search and check off that peer-reviewed box. That will automatically reload your results list to make sure that you're only looking at peer-reviewed items. Although it's always a good practice just to double check whatever it is that you're looking at, no matter what a database or a generative AI tool or Google Scholar or wherever else you may have searched might be telling you. I also want to point out this save search slash alert. Um, Databases have a tendency to time out pretty quickly. And so if you're looking at something that you feel like is going to be helpful for you, I would encourage you to go ahead and save that right away. That way you won't lose access to anything that you've been researching. I also want to talk about something that we call citation chaining. We kind of talk about citation chaining as going in two directions. You can either do it going backwards or going forwards. Backward citation chaining might be something that you already do without even realizing that it had an official name. All that means is taking a look at the resources that a specific article cites in its references or works cited section. You never know if an article might have cited something that could also be really helpful for your research. Then we also talk about forward citation chaining. And basically what that means is it means taking a particular article and looking forward in time to see what subsequent articles have been published that come back and cite whatever article it is that you started with. So a lot of times students will do forward citation chaining on articles that their professors recommend they take a look at for their topics. To do forward citation chaining, you do need to use a specific tool, and we would recommend Scopus, Web of Science, or just Google Scholar. And what you need to do for that is to put in the name of your article, just search for that article in whichever tool you choose. And then there will be an option to see what articles have cited that article. Sometimes it's called cited by. You can see that right here in Google Scholar. This is a really great way to find articles that may be very helpful for your topics in a quick, but still, scholarly type of searching method. Finally, I wanted to point out that we do have an AI tools comparison chart that's available on our AI for Peabody research guide. There are many more tools listed than what could fit in the screenshot, but this is really helpful because it goes through and it lists a lot of tools that students use, whether or not we have a Vanderbilt institutional subscription to them. Because we do know that students are using tools that we subscribe to, but also other tools. Research Rabbit is a good example of that. A lot of students use that even though Vanderbilt does not subscribe to it. So this tool will tell you what each AI tool does, whether it's free or not, how to get more information about it. And if you continue scrolling down on this page as well, it will kind of talk about some of the pros and cons of using AI tools in research. This is also definitely something that we can chat about if you would be interested in making an appointment. That's all that we have for this third video. Thank you so much for going through this orientation with me. Again, this is all the ways that you are able and welcome to get in touch with me, send me an email, make a research appointment. I really look forward to hearing from you, and thank you so much again.